If you're tired of getting on sales calls with unqualified leads, you clearly need to start qualifying them beforehand. And in this video, I'm going to show you my entire step-by-step setting process that I take leads through to qualify them for the following important criteria to determine if they're a good fit for a full-blown sales call, which usually takes up a whole hour. So to be able to save you that whole hour, you need to qualify the leads for the following criteria. Number one, you have to make sure that the lead actually has a problem that you can help them with, and that the lead acknowledges that they have that problem. Number two, you need to make sure that the lead is financially qualified to be able to pay for your services, because what's the point of getting on a call with someone who cannot pay for your services? And then number three, you need to make sure that there's urgency, there's a sense of urgency, and there's a gap between where the lead is and where they want to be, and that they want to work on closing the gap as soon as possible, preferably yesterday. Going through this entire script with your prospect typically takes about 10-15 minutes, but it can and it will save you hours upon hours of time that you will waste otherwise on sales calls with prospects that are not a qualified fit. So without any further ado, let's jump onto my share screen and I'll take you through my entire process. And in case you're wondering how I know all of this stuff, my name is Nazim, and in the last 10 years as a marketing and sales consultant, I've made my clients over $40 million in sales. So without any further ado, let's dive in. All right, perfect. Let's get started. As you can see, this is the entire setting process, and the end result of the setting process is you either qualify people for a sales call or you disqualify them. And obviously, let's start from the very beginning. The purple sticky notes are explanations of each phase, and everything starts with an introduction. Depending on how the lead came into your funnel, whether they watched your video sales letter, your webinar, or maybe bought your book, you would obviously adjust your introduction accordingly. And for example, if they watched your webinar, you would say, "Hey, this is Nazim. Am I calling Mark? Perfect. Nice meeting you. And the reason I'm calling you is because you watched our webinar and you applied for a breakthrough session. Is that true? Perfect, Mark. Do you have 2 minutes so I can ask you a couple of questions real quick?" And if Mark says yes, you carry on with your sales process. And if Mark says no, you set them up for a follow-up call. The best thing to do is to book in for that day. That's number one. And number two is always pick a specific time for the call. And if Mark says no, you would say, "Okay, what would be the better time to call you today?" Right? And if they say 3 p.m., then call them at 3 p.m. At the very worst, you should go for at least the time of the day when you can call them, right? Is it the morning, the afternoon, or the evening? So that's that. After they tell you that they do have the 2 minutes, and obviously typically calls go on for about 10 minutes, but they can go on for 2 minutes if you determine that the lead is disqualified very early on. But typically, if it's a good prospect, the entire process takes at least 10-15 minutes. So you move on to setting the frame, right? Though the call is only 10-15 minutes, you still have to explain to them what's going to happen on the call so that you assume the leadership of the call, and you essentially, you tell them how it's going to happen. And in the purple sticky notes, you can see pretty much the syntax for how you should set the frame. And it sounds something like this. Like, "Okay, Mark, what I found to work best on these calls is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your lead generation goals, and based on that, I'll be able to see if I can help you. And if it's something I can help you with, I'll tell you exactly how we can help. And if not, I will forward you the best resources that will help you on your journey. Does that sound fair?" Okay, if it sounds fair, then you move on to the biggest challenge. Again, the reason why you want to set the frame is because, first of all, it allows the prospect to see, to kind of vision what's going to happen on the call, and you set the entire outcome of the call as a win-win, right? So I'm going to either tell you how we can help, or I'm going to send you helpful resources, which is, again, in either way, it's a win for the prospect. And then also setting the frame allows you to take over the leadership and tell them, "Hey, I'm going to be asking some questions, so let's lock in," right? Then the first big question is, what's your biggest challenge, right? And this is where you want to confirm that there's a problem and specify the problem, right? So what you would ask is, "Okay, well, what's your biggest challenge with lead generation at the moment?" Again, this is hooked and tied to the funnel that you're running with, right? And what you're explaining on the funnel. If the funnel is about lack of leads and you helping people set up a new lead generation channel, then you would say, "Okay, what's your biggest problem with lead generation at the moment in your business?" Right? If the webinar or the VSL or the book is about weight loss, what's the big problem with weight loss with your weight loss journey, or with losing weight at the moment, or getting fit? You have to confirm the problem and, have them tell you that they have a problem and make it specific. After that, you dive into basic information gathering. So going back to the lead generation example, before you move on to further questions and kind of like chunking down and diving deeper into their specific problems, you do some basic information gathering on them as a person or as a business. By the way, real quick, gotta give props where it's due. A lot of the systems I learned from Cole Gordon. So if you want to check him out, you can go check out his YouTube channel as well. But back to the setting script, information gathering, right? So if, again, you're talking to a business, what you would say, you would ask them pretty much 3 specific questions. You would ask them about what they sell, how much they sell it for, and then what's their ideal target audience that they're going after. Info gathering is also actually a great way to figure out if the lead is potentially financially qualified for your services. For example, and you can do it like in a very ninja indirect way without having to ask upfront. Though, again, if you're in B2B, you can easily say and how much revenue your business is generating, especially if you have this ROI kind of based guarantee. It essentially helps to set that as a benchmark and then compare it to the goals that they have. But if you're not B2B, you can say, hey, okay, what do you sell? Okay, subscription services. How much you sell them for? $500. And how many clients are you servicing at the moment? 25. Okay, well, the business is making over $10,000, which is a positive sign. If you're dealing with the B2C sector, you can ask people what do they do for a living, right? If they're unemployed, then it increases the odds that potentially the lead is unqualified. If they're employed, if they're the top line manager, it increases the odds that they are financially qualified. Again, it does not guarantee them, but it gives you a good sense, right? So you need information gathering anyway, because if the lead is qualified, you have to write down the notes or let your AI note taker create the notes that then you will use in the actual full-blown sales call. After that, after you have the context of them or their business, you move on to actually understanding what the big challenge or like what's actually not working. Because one thing is for them to say that I have a lead generation problem, and a whole different thing is to actually understand what is it that they're doing and how is it not working. And it's important to ask these questions, again, for the prospect to come to you and say that they have a problem and specify what is it that they're doing. Again, it, first of all, most importantly, gives you intel on what's not working for them at the level that it should. And then also it kind of like, we're not doing it intentionally, but it creates this still headspace in the prospect's mind that I have a problem, I'm doing this and it's not working and I clearly need help. That's like a great value add. So, if again you offer a lead generation as a service, basic questions you can ask is, okay, what do you do for lead gen? Sending out emails. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about how you do that and what are your results and why do you think you're not getting the results, right? Again, if you're a personal trainer or you have a fitness training program, tell me about your weight loss journey so far. What are you doing to lose weight? What have you done? Why do you think that hasn't worked out? Right? Then you move on to the goal. It's very important to set the goal because thus far you've been kind of like setting the problems, right? And you've been setting the benchmark where they are right now. It's very important to create the gap and understand where they want to be, right? And really, the best sales happen when the gap is big and the person is financially capable and it's relevant for them very much at the moment. That's when sales really happen, even if you butcher the sales call. If there's a big gap between where they are, where they want to be, if it's important to them and it's important to close the gap now, and if you can position your product as the way for them to get from point A to point B, this is when sales happen, right? So you want to create the gap by determining the end point of their journey, right? You also want to understand why it's important. So you would basically ask, you would say, okay, Mark, sounds good. I understand you're making a little bit over $10,000. You've been trying to send out emails, but it's not been working. Obviously, I'm just curious, what financial goals do you have for your business and where do you want to be in, say, 6 months from now? Okay, I want to make 30 grand a month. Okay, well, 30 grand a month, that's cool. Why 30 grand specifically? And what is that going to allow you to do in business? And then you can see in personal life too, right? Again, going back to weight loss example, you can say you want to lose how much weight do you want to lose or do you have a specific event that you're preparing for? I need to lose weight for my wedding. Sounds good. When is your wedding? 8 months. Okay, and how much do you need to lose exactly? 10 kilograms. Okay, so that's nice. Say you lose 10 kilograms. What is it gonna make you feel, right? Again, creates the gap, adds meaning to the entire journey. And the last step of the entire process is to create urgency. And again, they can even have the gap and have the financial resources, but it's still if the gap is could be or kind of want and not I need it right now, if there's no urgency, then they're not going to pay, right? And in some cases, it may not even make sense, pardon me, to have the sales call at the moment. Had it sometimes when it was 10 out of 10 for all the previous steps, and then came down to the urgency, and a seemingly qualified hot lead kind of was like 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10 on the urgency scale. Or for example, they're leaving for a vacation in 2 weeks, and it would just make sense for you to talk in 2 weeks where you can actually present the offer and expect them to pay, right? So you say, why now? And like, how soon do you need it to get it done by, right? Like, or how soon, or by what time specifically do you need to lose weight? And then it's very simple, guys. You determine if they're qualified, you set them, and if they're not qualified, you DQ them. I highly recommend that when you DQ them, if you're using a sales CRM, which I think you should, as soon as you start getting on like more than 5-6 calls per week, I highly recommend that you create an automation that if you go in the CRM, that there's a deal, if you mark them qualified, I highly recommend that you create an automation that sends them an email with, let's say, like a free book or like some sort of template, so that you actually fulfill on the promise that you made them when you were setting the frame. And if the lead is qualified, obviously you set the call. One more ninja trick that I do recommend for you to do when you're setting the call to increase the odds of the person actually showing up on the call, some best industry practices. Number one, try to schedule the call for the day after, maximum in 48 hours from the setting call, because what I found that after 48 hours, after 2 days, the pretty much every extra day takes away from the likelihood that the lead is going to get on a call with you by about 20%. Don't quote me on that number. It's just my anecdotal experiences. For the same day also sounds good. I've literally seen people have the setting call and get closed on like a $15,000 deal on the same day, but minimum 48 hours. I think like that for the day after usually is something that you can expect to work out great for most people, and if not, then maybe in like 2 days. In some cases, they might have to set the call for, let's say, in like 3 or 4 days from now. You can do that. Just make sure that you follow up with them at least 24 hours prior. Sometimes I actually seen that salespeople would tell them, okay, I'll call you in like 2 days, and then let's set the call then. I think it's adding a bit too much work to your plate. Just set the call and, send them a reminder and give them a quick call a day before the call actually happens. So that's number one. Number two is, again, something I learned from Cole Gordon. When you confirm the time for the call, let's say, yeah, I'm available tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. What you can say is following. You can say, Mark, are you sure you'll make that time? And Mark says, yes, sure. I'm sure. Then you say, Mark, will you please let me know if in any case you have to reschedule the call or you have to cancel it? Because when I set these calls to Nazim, he kind of gets upset with me when people don't show up on the call. So he kind of like gives me a hard time. So will you please do that? 2 things you do. Number one, you don't say could you or can you. You say will you, which basically makes the prospect give their honest word that, okay, I will. There's a big difference between I can and I will. That's number one. And then number two, you essentially create a frame where if they don't keep their word, and show up on a call, they undermine you, right? Like, they almost make you look bad in front of Nazim, and they know Nazim gives you a hard time, so they don't want to let you down, which is why they actually get on a call. So it's kind of like, this is a ninja trick, right? And typically salespeople say, hey, like, will you do it? Are you 100% sure? We don't offer reschedules, like kind of like coming to the prospect too strongly. What I found to work best is to come to it from an inferior frame and almost like ask for help. And that's when people open up and are way more keen to uh, follow through on their word than coming to them forcefully. That's it. That's the entire setting process. If you like this video and like the style, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to work with me, go to nazimconsulting.com. Check out my case studies. And if you want a free audit on your business and your processes, I'm happy to give you that as well. Talk to you soon.